Yay Networks.
Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Happy Wednesday, Great Girlfriends. I hope you have been enjoying a marvelous summer, marvelous Renaissance tour. I've seen all the pictures. Everybody's been out breaking their soul and giving big energy and just enjoying time together. I love that we're outside like that. I'm still inside. I'm still recording. I'm still here. And today I have a guest here to talk about psychological safety. And I'm going to tell you really quickly. We were in a conversation on Sunday. So I met my beautiful, marvelous, amazing guest on a Sunday. This is how quickly I move. This is how quickly I get into bed with people. I met her on a Sunday, right? And we had a great conversation. And in that conversation, Dr. Wilsa Malveaux dropped incredible gems on psychological safety. And even in the duration of that conversation we're in, Dr. Wilsa, I was still backtracking to psychological safety. And I was like, ooh, that permeates so many areas of our life. I know we're talking workplace here, but I'm seeing like relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, parent relationships, just all the places where psychological safety could come up. And my mind started floating. And so shortly after our really dynamic, amazing conversation on Sunday, I slid over. It was the equivalent of sliding into someone's DMs. I slid over and I was like, pretend I was in her DMs. And I was like, hey, girl. And she was like, hey. And I was like, are you free on Thursday to come and record with me to talk about this? And she said yes. I was like, my kind of girl. I love it. And I was so excited because I felt like it was a now conversation. It's a now conversation, and I feel like you're such a perfect person to articulate the meaning of psychological safety and how to incorporate that into our everyday life. But Great Girlfriends, I don't want to just toss her in and be like, take every word she says and just bite it and eat it and live off of it. I want to properly introduce you, Dr. Wilsa Malveaux, and thank you for coming on to the Great Girlfriends show.
Thank you for having me.
And letting me into your DM.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Unexpected, but appreciated.
I know. It was, meeting you on Sunday was unexpected, but so appreciated. It really was. Our conversation was really rich, and we talked about a myriad of things, but your how do I say it? The way that you spoke on everything you spoke on was just valuable, but the way that you spoke on psychological safety touched me because I was thinking, I had already been having internal conversations about that and having conversations with a number of great girlfriends who were experiencing a lack of psychological safety. And we didn't know how to phrase it. We didn't know how to coin the term, but you brought it to life and you really brought meaning to everything that we had been experiencing in conversation. So I want the audience to know. I want them to know who you are and what you're about. And I didn't just find her on the street. If I did, I would have been blessed to have done so. But we were actually destined to have this conversation this moment. But I do want them to know more about you.
No problem.
So who are you, Dr. Wilsa?
All right. Wow, that's a deep question. For my background, I am an East Coast girl that's kind of become bi-coastal because I've spent most of my adult life in California.
Yeah.
My family's from the Caribbean, and I grew up on the East Coast, but moved to California for undergrad, back for med school, married, traveled all over the country till we finally settled here and started our family. For school, undergrad, I went to Stanford so I had the whole PWI experience there.
Yeah.
I love Stanford. For med school, I went to Howard University. So I got my HBCU experience there. I loved that too. Met my husband there. And trained in psychiatry at UCLA. So that's what brought us out to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And been working in the field. I do general psychiatry, but also my subspecialty is sports psychiatry. So I work with athletes, different levels of athletes, from high school level athletes all the way up through professional and Olympic level athletes. A lot of consulting work with a lot of different leagues. And I'm not going to name drop anything there, but Yeah, that's my work.
She's like, but I'm that girl. Okay. I'm Dr. That Girl.
Thank you.
Dr. That Girl. I love that. So, okay. So over the years of your work and experience as a psychiatrist, you've seen so much.
Seen and experienced. Yeah.
So much. And there's so many. I don't even think you have a target persona in terms of who you reach. You're just reaching human lives.
Well, for me, yes, people in general, and helping people, and really getting at what affects people in their day-to-day experience. Getting not just, some people, especially when they think about sports, they think about performance.
Yeah.
And it's not so much the performance side, the way that, even though I do have a background in psychology as well, that a psychologist might look at techniques for performance. I do that too, but the things that get in the way of people being able to be at their best. So when you have failure, when you have a setback, especially one that you weren't expecting, when you have some kind of trauma that's taken place, when you have baggage from things that have happened in your life that are still inserting themselves in your way as you're trying to move forward, like getting to those things, as well as dealing with mental health issues as a physician and being able to diagnose that. Sometimes people are living with these things and the consequences of it, but not even really knowing what it is. So being able to make them know that this is okay to, first of all, find out what it is, to address it, to treat it if it's something that actually needs treatment. For me, apart from that, I'm really passionate about the intersection with social justice issues and mental health. So I do a lot of writing about that. And even not just for communities of color, but even for women and the issues that we have as women and how those things can affect our mental health as well.
I love that. We have seen a lot over the last 3 years. I mean, a lot. I don't even know if we can fully, assess what we've experienced, or even if it's time to, assess what we went through, starting from the close of 2019 through the summer, the heat of 2020. My gosh. And just sort of trying to coming out of that. But our children have experienced a lot, and our families experienced a lot. And a lot of things, dynamics change for people professionally. So when we started talking, and this conversation was prompted when you mentioned the term psychological safety, because I started to think of how psychologically insecure I felt in 2020, right? And even like returning to a sense of safety in my mind and my mental being, it took a lot of work. But then we started talking about the workplace specifically. And you made the point that a lot of people may not have psychological safety in their workplace. And I was like, oh God, because we spend so much time there. We're so vested into our careers. And to think that you would have so much time and experience vested into a career where you wouldn't feel psychological safety just feels like a tormenting space. So I want you to kind of tell us what it is. What is psychological safety? What does it look like? Right? What does it look like to have it? And what does it look like when you are lacking it?
Yeah. So psychological safety it's a group dynamic.
Okay.
So the term originally came up by a Harvard business professor that was studying these types of dynamics. And it's being able to be in a space where you can ask questions, you can challenge the status quo, you can make suggestions for improvement, you can admit that you made a mistake, and not have to fear being discriminated against for that, being bullied for that, being excluded for that, or any kind of negative repercussions for being able to be honest in those ways. So that's really what's at the root of it. It's trust, but specifically in that group dynamic.
Okay. In a group dynamic. So I didn't have it as a child.
See, and that's
I'm just gonna throw my whole child.
The only one.
And I mean, like in the 8, right? It was like we couldn't really say how we really felt. We were punished for feeling a certain thing we felt
or saying
it. We had to be didishonest we had to please our parents in so many ways.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there's a whole generation of me's out there that that didn't have it. And so it can happen. So in a group setting, that's familial. That can be in your family. It can be in your friends. Yeah. Oh, girl.
Yes.
How dare us
I
be-
should say friends. With
Yeah,
quotation
friends.
marks.
Oh my goodness! But it can
Friends.
happen in friendship. It can happen in the workplace, in
Absolutely.
community.
Yes.
In your community, for our kids could be experiencing that. Okay, so what I felt in 2020 was not a psychological insecurity because it wasn't a group. It's me versus me.
Well, you can have insecurity as a result
Of it.
psychological or lack of psychological safety.
Got it.
I've heard conversations before, and I felt it when they said it. To stop telling Black women, for example, that they have imposter syndrome, because what we're suffering from is not imposter syndrome. It's not about just that insecurity, like we think we're not enough, we think we're not good enough, we haven't done enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's being in psychologically unsafe environments habitually and not really within our control, where we're constantly told that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
We don't know enough. We're not ready. We're not as qualified.
Yeah.
So when you're kind of internalizing that feedback from other people, that's not the same thing as your own insecurity. That's different. Yeah.
So, great girlfriends, we are back to school busy in my house. And because we're so busy, I get so annoyed and frustrated with trying to figure out what to cook. Actually, I don't want to even try to figure it out, nor do I want to go to the grocery store, nor do I want to end up in a drive-through line. So I have been super happy and super relieved because I've chosen HelloFresh. And HelloFresh brings the food right to the doorstep, pre-portioned ingredients, and even the seasonings included. And what's so special about HelloFresh is no two meals are the same. So we pick the type of meals we want on the website, and they send them direct to our home. And there's a recipe card included. So not only do I have the option of cooking, but it's simple enough so that Dylan and Sam and Kwaku or anyone else can pick up the bag, pick up the recipe card, and start preparing the meals. And at the end of all of the cooking, I put all the ingredient packets right back in the bag to toss away, so there's not a bunch of mess. Saves me a lot of time, and the food is so very good. So it's really helping to make life simple for me at dinner time. And at dinner time, when I have all of these picky eaters in my house, no one's questioning what we're eating. They're excited because they like that we got something fresh, new, and different from HelloFresh. And on top of that, I love that HelloFresh has snacks. They even have snacks. So you can go to the HelloFresh market and pick from over 100 add-on items, snacks that you can give to your kids throughout the week. So we're talking fresh food that is simple to make, very easy to understand on the meal card, and enjoyable for every single member of your family. And it's just taking all the stress away from me so I can focus on doing all the other back to school stuff, and everyone still eats well. So now, maybe you're not in back to school mode, but maybe you're just having the stress of the season and you need to have simple meals that are healthy and absolutely so freaking delicious. So if you want them, go to HelloFresh.com/50girlfriends and use code 50girlfriends for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50girlfriends and use code 50girlfriends for 50% off plus free shipping. This is America's #1 meal kit, so you absolutely cannot go wrong. Hope you enjoy it.
That is so good, and it's so true. It really, it's our response to
Trauma.
having that type of feedback, and that is traumatic feedback.
Yes.
And oh my goodness. So then that's disruptive to our entire system if we've been raised to think otherwise, but our norm is now teaching us that we're not enough.
Yes. Yes. And some people haven't been raised to think otherwise.
Absolutely. So then it reinforces a belief that, it validates. It validates. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. So what does it look like? Okay. So what are some of the things that you might say to yourself when you are feeling psychological safety? What is the internal dialogue?
When you're feeling safe?
Yeah. No, insecure. So excuse me, when you lack psychological safety.
Well, it makes people kind of shut down, number one. Or they might feel almost a visceral response. They might become angry. They might not be truthful anymore. Because if you've learned that it's not safe to tell the truth, if you've learned that it's not safe to give your suggestions, and if you're only getting negative repercussions from doing it, then you're either going to just disengage or be disingenuous. You know, it can really hinder you.
Yeah.
And how it does, it depends on like what you're talking about. Like if we're talking about at work, you know, that might be someone who now is not as vested in being a part of this work group, this company, and now they're looking for another job. Now they're looking to start their own company. You know, sometimes that it breeds that type of ingenuity because you're like, I can't stay in this space anymore. Sometimes people are missing out on innovations, ideas, progress because those people are like, well, no one's listening to me anyway. So I'm just not going to say it.
Yeah.
And now the team is not benefiting from them, unbeknownst to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's all kinds of repercussions just in that sphere. In friendships, I mean, that's how you find some people that are surrounded with kind of like yes men or yes women because it's not a safe environment for people to actually disagree. Yeah.
What about in romantic relationships, in a marriage?
So that's different. So that's emotional safety. And the reason why I say that's different. So the term as it's been coined, but a lot of people use it interchangeably. But the term as it's been coined when we say psychological safety is talking about the group. In relationships, emotional safety, it's almost the same thing, but it's with that one-on-one.
Yeah.
Those two people dynamics. And to have emotional safety and security in a relationship, it's giving someone, knowing that you have the benefit of the doubt. Let's say you're in some kind of questionable situation. Does a level of trust exist that you would expect that this person can carry themselves in a way that's still honoring the relationship? Do they have that expectation and trust of you? Can you be vulnerable and be your authentic self with them and be accepted, be not just accepted, but cherished and loved for it? Or are you in a situation where you feel like, whether this is a romantic relationship or a friendship, that you have to dim your light to make that person comfortable? That's what it feels like to not have it.
Yeah.
When you feel like you can't be yourself, or you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, or careful not to shine too much because someone else might feel like somehow it dims their light.
So when people start asking the question, is this a safe space, right? Or when people we use the term so frequently of creating safe spaces. Most of the time we are likely speaking of psychologically safe spaces when we're creating these like group environments or when we're opening up dialogue around certain things that could be uncomfortable for some. It's still creating a psychologically safe space.
Yes.
So I think it's so interesting, Dr. Wilson, because so many people today talk about it, right? And I feel like we are more intentional around curating psychological safety.
Yes.
Yet. However, I still feel we still have a mountain of work to do. Like, I still feel that we're missing certain elements of psychological safety that maybe. Is it just for women in the workplace? Is it that people are unaware of what we need, or are we still not speaking our needs fully?
I think it's a mix.
Okay.
But I even think there's another piece to it. I think a lot of times you have places that, especially since 2020, when DEI became like more of a big deal and a term that was more widely known, people feel that they have to check a box to show that they are supposedly doing these efforts.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, they're not really interested in actually changing.
Right.
So when someone comes up with an idea, they'll say, oh, that's great. This is how we normally do things. But maybe next time we'll try to incorporate that.
Yeah.
You know, or it's just not really, it's taken note of, but not really acted upon when people make suggestions for how would this be safer for me. And I really feel like if you have to ask if it's a safe space, that's probably your first clue that it's not.
It's not a safe space.
A safe space.
Because you know a safe space. You feel safe in a safe space.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have indicators. Well, what if it's a person who has never truly known psychological safety? Like, for example, you were saying, you know, in their upbringing, did not grow up with a sense of psychological safety, and then in life just began to follow a pattern of filling in spaces where there was that insecurity.
You know, people are drawn to what's familiar.
Yeah.
And even when it's not healthy, even when it's something that they recognized before that they don't like.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's something that they're familiar with, that's how they end up in friendships with the same person with different names and relationships with the same person with different names. But I really feel like when you find the places where you feel accepted and where you feel like it's safe, it's a different feeling altogether.
Yeah.
It might even be a feeling of discomfort at first. If you know that you haven't really been in edifying situations, or have a background of people who support you in that way, you might start to question, like, am I worthy of this? Am I enough? I think if you start questioning that because you feel like people are telling you that you are, that might be a clue that you're actually entering a more positive space. But that's
good.
also a kind of that push to do the work on yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where like therapy comes in, because sometimes people can reject spaces and relationships and people that are actually good for them because it's so unfamiliar that it's uncomfortable. And they feel like this can't be for me.
Yeah.
I can't really be this great thing or be doing this great work that these people say I am, because I'm not used to people telling me that.
Oh, that is so good. So how do we disrupt it? How do we disrupt that pattern of attaching ourselves to these spaces that are not safe? Like, how do we start to create more safe spaces? I mean, especially when you start saying friendship, like my heart bleeds for any woman who is in the middle of a friendship that she's fighting for, that's not holding the value that, or not giving her a sense of certainty or mirroring something beautiful and positive. So I think about that. I mean, I just think about that. And I think about work, again, like when we talked about work, and I think about how much time, I think the average person is at 55 hours a week, which hasn't even changed since the pandemic. The balance that people are incorporating has gotten worse because of working from home. So you have more time to do more, theoretically. So there's so much time vested there. And in our Facebook group, the Great Girlfriends Facebook group, we hear a lot. I get a lot of questions around women trying to figure out, how do I ask for a raise, or how do I know when it's time? So there are people living this out real time, Dr. Wilsa, and they are struggling and wasting years.
Yes.
Like time is passing, and then the more years pass, the more people feel like they are further disqualified.
Yes.
I'm getting older now. Or is it too late?
It's never too late.
It's
never too late.
How do we disrupt?
So many thoughts that come to my mind when you talk about these different environments. Let's talk about the friends first.
Okay.
I think that it starts, any relationship, whether you're talking about friendship or romantic, what have you, it starts with yourself and being healthy yourself. So if you know that whether you've gotten comfortable with it or not, that you've had a pattern of aligning yourself with people where you feel like you have to dim yourself, or you don't feel like you can really be yourself, or you don't know who that is because you're so busy people pleasing. That's something to explore.
Yeah.
That's something to think about, but also doing therapy can be helpful.
Yeah.
Because it helps people to get that objective perspective, not from someone who's invested in possibly keeping them where they are or has interfering other alliances that might come into play. So that's one thing with the friendships. Being honest about what it is that you're looking for, and recognizing also that people come into your life, for a reason and a season, as they say. Yeah. So maybe that friendship or relationship was edifying at one point in time. Maybe that's changed. Yeah. Maybe it's just not that, or not meant to move forward with where you're going right now, and not being afraid to let go of those things, because if you do, you might make room for something that is more edifying. But also, so much of your mention about negotiation, even with work negotiations, not being afraid to be honest about, well, what do you see happening? How do you feel about it? Talk to the other person about it. And, maybe it's when those growing moments where it's a misunderstanding and you move forward and it's stronger, or maybe you really realize that you're on a different path. So not being afraid to have those conversations. With respect to work, I think, again, you have to be honest about what it is that you want. And if it's a place that's stifling you, but you really want to grow, then maybe you do need to make a move towards something else, and be on the lookout for that. If you are not getting paid your worth, first of all, tell yourself that you're worth it. Find out what people are getting paid. Figure out what it is that you feel like you should be getting, or that other people are, and then you just have to get comfortable with asking for it. Not giving away your time for free, not giving your time for less or your talents for less, and you just have to ask for it. And the more you ask for it, the more confident and secure you can be about it.
Yeah.
I think that's key. One movement, and I'm gonna pull this up because this person's name to me is so important. I do not want to say it wrong.
Okay.
But I think a lot of people have heard in recent years, especially about the Crown Act.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first law that's really being put into place at the state level to end discrimination for hair, for natural hair.
Yeah.
And actually, literally, it stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair.
Mm-hmm.
And Ajawa B. Asamoah,
Mm-hmm.
she was a creator of the idea and has been the champion of this on the national level since, I think, 2018 is when she came up with it.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't understand or realize, some people, especially if it doesn't personally affect them, like how much that makes a difference.
Yeah.
To not be told, especially we talk about for Black women, that your hair, the way it grows out of your head, is somehow not professional.
Yeah.
That if you don't slick it back or straighten it, somehow like you can't fit into this space of executives or of people who have a role of importance.
Yep.
So things like that, actual policies that make it a more inclusive environment, that's how we change things on the work level.
Yeah. Okay, so someone listening is going, easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
You say get uncomfortable. You say you have to just ask the question. Like you are advocating for us to do the difficult thing. And someone listening is going, if I knew how to do the difficult thing, I would have done the difficult thing. So how do I do the difficult thing? Like, how do I do the difficult thing? I mean, I've gotten all kind of coaching and mentorship for all the things when I feel like it's out of my body and I need to step into another dimension or I'm evolving and I need a push or a shove. I'll get the mentorship. I'll get the coach. I have to do something disruptive. Like I have to do something or I'll announce it publicly that forces me to back it up.
Yes.
Because I want my word to be true. So I'll say it publicly and then I'll force myself into it. I mean, that's how I disrupt. I don't know if it's right. I'm probably traumatizing myself. Dr. Wilson, I'll be in your chair. But I mean, I just think I just disrupt. What do you do? How do you do the difficult thing?
You know, I'll say this. First of all, the first thing that came to my mind when you said it is like, be like Nike. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Like you really sometimes have to just do it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the first time everyone should have mentors, first of all. And that's great that you have that and accountability partners for different things that you're working towards.
Absolutely.
One of my mentors, I remember coming to them once when I was asked to do a talk for an organization and asking that mentor, because they'd been doing it longer, how much I should charge. And this is over text message. And when they texted me back the number, I had to call them. Did you
add a zero?
There's too many zeros here. Did you really mean that?
Yeah.
I was like, yes. And I was like, really? He's like, yes. And you have to say that to yourself until you get comfortable, and then you tell them.
Yeah.
And truly, the more you say it, the more you become comfortable with it, because you have to know your worth.
Yeah.
I had another mentor years ago that he said something to a group of us, and he said, personal fear, get over it. It'll only hold you back. And every time that I feel afraid to do something that I feel like would help me to move forward in whatever it is I'm trying to do, I tell myself that. Yeah. Because it's true. It'll only hold you back. What's going to happen? They might say no. You know, that's a possibility, but everybody has to face rejection. That's part of the road to success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting how much we'll hang on one no when there's billions of people in the world willing to say yes.
That you'll never find if you don't ask.
If you don't ask. And that's if you're in business and you're pitching decks, like I'm constantly pitching decks and I'm pitching ideas. And if you're in even my kids, they ask for the moon, the stars, and every planet out there. And I'm like, let me not shoot you down. Let me give you the freedom to keep asking. I might not have your immediate yes, but there's a yes out there for every planet. I just don't want to disrupt it. But I'm learning more and more that sitting with those thoughts and warring with them is only manipulating your confidence in the future, right? It's like if I sit with that negativity long enough and I let it talk to me long enough, it's going to talk me out of the confidence I'm going to need tomorrow for something fresh.
Yes.
So I have to be willing to really disrupt those thoughts
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody has them.
Yeah.
Everybody has them. When I love listening.
Why does it look like Beyonce doesn't have them?
Oh, she has them. Everybody has them. Everybody.
Beyonce looks like she has zero negative thoughts.
But you know
I'm
what?
just saying.
Her music is the best. You know what? She might make that for herself too.
Right,
if you want to build yourself up, you won't break my soul.
I will not break my own soul. That is Beyonce talking to Beyonce.
Yes.
That's right. That's
comfortable
right.
in my skin.
That's
like
right.
for real. Like
Yeah.
use it as affirmation.
Yeah. It's certain people though. I mean, just a side note, Maya Angelou looks like she had none. I mean, and even as you read her story, it's like she finessed her way through all of these very complex decisions. I know she had it, right? And it may have shown up in habits. You know, things that she drank or did, but it just doesn't not seem like some women have zero negative thoughts in their head.
It seems like it, but through life and people, I mean, you never know what their internal dialogue is and what they're really going through. And nobody's life is perfect.
That's so true. You're absolutely right.
Everybody has their insecurities. It might be a different insecurity,
but it's an insecurity.
But they have it.
Yeah. You know, don't let Instagram fool you.
That's right. That's like the highlight reel.
That's the highlight reel.
Real life too.
But then life is happening offline. That is so true.
Yes.
Okay. You know I got to have you back, right?
I'll do it.
Okay, clearly, because she's like, I'm available. I'm going to do it. I love this so much. I want to hear more, great girlfriends. If you are like raising your hand in your car, wherever you are, saying, yes, I have experienced psychological safety in different forms now that we know and understand the definition and how it works. And we also understand how it feels to be psychologically insecure, like they have a lack of safety. And we know what it feels like to have safety. Or if you're like going to make a pledge to yourself to do something different, better, more empowering as a result of what Dr. Wilsa shared with us today, send us an email, welcome@thegreatgirlfriends.com. Tag us on Instagram in your post. Let us know what's going on. And Dr. Wilsa, how can they keep up with you or follow up with you for more conversation?
Well, I am on Instagram as well.
Okay.
WCM Sports Psych.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook, WCM Sports Psych, Twitter, Dr. Wilsa, LinkedIn. You can look up my whole name, Dr. Wilsa Charles Malveaux.
Okay.
And I post things. I comment on things that are happening in the world that I feel like really touch people and how I feel like it can affect people. I write, so feel free to Google articles. And, I'm here to talk about what matters. So reach out. If there's something I haven't written about that y'all want to hear about, feel free. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to have you back.
Awesome.
Thank you. Peace, great girlfriends.
Hey, great girlfriends. It's me, Dylan. Welcome to the Motivational Minute. Today's quote is from the one and only Bible, from Psalms 46:5. God is within her. She will not fail. I think this means that if you believe in God, you have to make sure that you think that God is with you and you know that God's inside you so that he can carry you to where you want to be. This has been my Motivational Minute. Bye.
All right, great girlfriends. Did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends. Follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends and on Twitter at @the_greatGFS. I'm Sybil Amuti and I'm out. Peace.
Yay Networks.